Great, good afternoon and welcome everyone. I hope you're all well. Welcome to Glasgow Talks, Scottish Business Leaders in Technology. It's a real pleasure to see you all this afternoon. I'm looking forward to some great participation from you all as we go through the next hour and a bit with you. We are delighted to welcome you to today's session with the continued support of Glasgow University, the Adam Smith Business School and Clydesdale Bank. I'm Gillian Docherty. I'm your host for this afternoon's session. I'm Chief Executive of the DataLab, Scotland's Innovation Centre for Data Science and AI, but I'm also Deputy President of the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. And I'm delighted to be joining you wearing my chamber hat today to celebrate the contribution of Scottish business leaders in technology. And today we're joined by a fantastic panel, including Dr. Rabinder, Buttar, CEO and founder of Clintec, Jude Mccory, CEO of Scottish Business Resilience Centre, and Evelyn Walker, Director of Walker Gordon Associates, and also a fellow Chamber of Commerce Director. And if you hadn't noticed, today it is International Women's Day, a global day that celebrates the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women. It helps to raise awareness of equality and hopefully to accelerate gender parity. So we are going to be coming to you over the course of the next hour and a bit to ask you for your choose to challenge, which is the theme of International Women's Day. So you can, if you haven't thought of or hadn't been involved in the discussion either on social media or other events and platforms today, then give it a thought, because we'd love to capture your personal choose to challenge event. Now, the key theme is that, you know, Scotland and Glasgow indeed excels at tech and technology. Technology itself underpins all sectors and industry, and no more has that been shown in the last year. And the importance of technology, digital and other capability to help us manage our way through the pandemic and to continue to contribute. It is huge opportunity for Scotland, and in fact there are over 1,500 tech businesses in Scotland contributing 4.9 billion in GVA to the economy. And in fact, GVA per head in the technology sector contributes 40% higher than the economy as a whole. So it's a significant contributor to Scotland's economy. And in Scotland, with Edinburgh and Glasgow, we've got two of the top cities in the UK for tech community and tech startups. Edinburgh sitting second behind London and Glasgow closely following up in fourth. Now that's fantastic, I think, for Scotland. And you can see the significant investment in Glasgow over the last few years in technology roles, from the large campuses of Barclays and JP Morgan being built in the city, a significant investment from Morgan Stanley, and a very healthy tech ecosystem and startup community supported by your vibrant universities as well. And with access to 43% of the Scottish population within a 1-hour commute, albeit that's maybe less relevant now than we felt it maybe was a year ago, actually it's a fantastic city to build technology businesses. And that's why it's great to be joined by our three wonderful panelists today. And what we're going to do is each of our panelists is going to talk us through a little bit about their background, their journey to where they are, and what they see in terms of emerging trends from the industries that they work in and specialise in. So I'm going to come to each of them in turn to share those journeys with us in a bit more detail. And then we're going to come back round and have a more in-depth conversation around your choose to challenge idea. And at that point, we will open it up for questions. But if you do have any questions as we go through, please pop them in the chat. And we'll come to you if you're quite comfortable asking those questions. It's great because it's on Zoom, we can see everyone and you can participate in person. But if you would prefer just to write your question in the chat, that's fine, and we'll come to them and we'll ask the panelists in turn. So I'm delighted to welcome our first panelist, Dr. Rabinder Buttar, Chairman, CEO and founder of Clintec. And Clintec's a leading global provider of advanced analytics, technology solutions and contract research services to the life sciences industry. And Rabinder has a huge set of accolades, from twice being named Scottish Entrepreneur of the Year, IOD Director of the Year, Businesswoman of the Year, and Distinguished Entrepreneur for Strathclyde's Academy. An honorary doctorate from UWS, a PhD in immunology, and a BSc in biochemistry. And we were just chatting beforehand about how the whole world has come to learn these terms of immunologists, virologists, and epidemiologists in the last year, something we maybe thought would never have happened. So what a fantastic background, a fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine and a fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. I'm delighted to welcome and hear more from Rabinder.
Thank you very much, Gillian. It's a pleasure for myself to be joining yourself and the City of Glasgow, the Chamber of Commerce, in this important talk in the field of technology. At no time has technology been more relevant than today. I think every one of us in each of our households have had some aspect of technology and have had to adjust to it. I was just talking to my father earlier on, and he said, "Can I come on the Zoom call?" He's 82 years old, and he's actually a very fit guy. And what's made him fit is his Apple Watch that we got him for his last birthday. And he likes to do yesterday he did more than 15,000 steps. So technology is really important and is affecting every one of our lives, especially in the field of healthcare and medicine. It has become so important, especially with the pandemic. Now, I started my journey in clinical research in biotechnology just over 30 years ago at Strathclyde University, making vaccines for the future and looking at all the different aspects. My actual PhD was called Novel Methods for the Development of Monoclonal Antibodies, and it's for vaccines for the future. Little did I know that so many years later that the whole world would be talking about vaccines and needing the COVID vaccine. Now, that just shows the importance of healthcare. It's been a very long and exciting and fast, I would say, journey for myself and my team, my leadership team. Today is International Women's Day, and I couldn't be more delighted to announce that 75% of the workforce in Clintec are women. And there are actually many, many women leaders across the globe. And they have been breaking all sorts of hurdles and boundaries. We've always had the foresight to create a flexible working environment, knowing how challenging it is to grow a business. I started just over 24 years ago when my two sons were born, and started working from home and supporting pharmaceutical companies. At that time, I was in Germany, and we'd just finished work with a Japanese company that brought a drug onto the market, which became a blockbuster. So that really motivated me to do much with Clintec. Our teams grew globally, and the women leaders across the globe developed many interesting drugs in support of the pharmaceutical industry. Now, 22 years ago, we joined Acuvia. I sold my business to Acuvia, and I still work there as president of the company. And it's a very large company, even more tech-enabled than we were. Many hundreds of trials are going on in the field of COVID, but also in diabetes and oncology and other very important aspects as well. We've really had to adjust over the last years and accelerate using technology and try to do speak to our doctors and our patients using remote methods, using technology. Virtual trials, they're called. So I would say Glasgow's a great place. We've got over 100 people in the Glasgow office, about 700 altogether in Clintec, and about 70,000 in Acuvia. And these days, the opportunities are even more immense as we can all work internationally, globally, using different technologies. Now, coming back to the Apple Watch and other wearable devices, they're also being used in clinical trials. And I actually saw some data where It was for the ECG and heart conditions, and I thought, that's amazing data. They actually could predict that the patient was in some serious health condition and could get him to hospital because of the data. So I think it's important. My thing to everyone is embrace technology. It can really help you. It can even save lives, especially if your physicians can get access to your data. Gillian, is there anything more you'd like me to add at the moment?
No, that is great. Thank you very much, Rabinder, and I'm sure that will stimulate some thoughts in our audience today of questions to ask you shortly. So thank you very much. Second, I would love to welcome Jude Mccory. Jude has over 20 years of experience in the technology sector, started her career in Ireland with Dell before moving to Scotland, where she's made a huge contribution over the years. And I had the absolute pleasure of working with Jude at the DataLab. We had lots of fun, lots of laughs for anyone that knows Jude, but tirelessly working hard to help Scotland in data then, but now has transitioned her thoughts to helping Scotland in cyber, and was appointed Chief Exec of Scottish Business Resilience Centre in April 2020, just after the pandemic hit. She is one of the founders of the Data for Children collaborative with UNICEF, and I know Jude works tirelessly to help others and ensure there's a social benefit to the work that she does. She is a board member of Parkinson's Scotland, which she's very, very passionate about, and also on the policy board at SCDI. So Jude, welcome, over to you.
Okay. I'm actually just going to talk about probably my earlier years and how I got here, because I think, as Gillian says, she's already read out everything about me since I've come to Scotland. So as she said, I started my career over 20 years ago. I'm not going to say how much more over 20 years ago in the tech industry with Dell. And I moved to Scotland 18 years ago, found myself an amazing Scottish guy. He's out making me a cup of coffee, so I better say that. And then, as Gillian said as well, I started as CEO the week just before lockdown over here. So I was supposed to be on a week's holidays, and there wasn't anything to do the first week of lockdown. So I just started a week early. One thing I'm very passionate about is getting more women into tech, but not just getting them into it, but keeping them there. And that's what I want to do around my challenge today. And the reason why I'm passionate about this is because a lot of people have supported me, including Gillian, along my journey. And that's why I'm very passionate about helping people, especially around tech and things like the Parkinson's stuff as well. And the reason, probably tech was my get out of jail card from where I was brought up in Ireland. And there's nothing wrong with my family background or anything, but I was brought up in the border areas, which was very depressed in Ireland. I was born in the 1970s. And I was really determined to make something of myself and get out of that way of living. My dad was a very avid listener of the news every morning. So at breakfast time, all we heard was doom and gloom around the troubles in Northern Ireland. And he also loved listening to the death notice. So that was a great start in the morning time for us all. I think it's got something to do with Parkinson's. It was brewing at that stage. And I was the only person in my class to go to university, and I was supported by a lot of my teachers because they knew that I wanted to get out and do something different and not end up working along the border areas and stuff, and probably getting into farming, and there wasn't much industry around the same at the time. So went to university, and I fell into tech by accident because a recruitment company set up in the hallway in the university, and they came along to talk to us about an unknown company that they weren't allowed to. It was a known company, was unknown to us, who were opening up in Ireland, and it turned out to be Dell. So we all went through the application process, and 100 of us at the university got a job, and we were the first 100 employees to start. So that to me was, you know, the people that interviewed us, the people that gave us that start. That was my first way of getting into the tech industry, and I've got an awful lot of time to thank all of those people that helped me along that journey, and everybody as well who supported me and mentored me in Dell, where there was no difference between men and women. So women were supported just as much as men, and I didn't have any children at the time, and But what I did see when I looked around was how women were supported in the workplace, for an American company coming to Ireland and doing that. And that's the way I always say that I was brought up in the IT industry, and that's the way I'd like to continue on supporting women in everything that I do over here as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Jude. And Evelyn is our final panelist today. Evelyn Walker is the founder and director of Walker Gordon Associates. They are an HR, digital and cyber educational consultancy company. Evelyn's got a long pedigree in the technology industry, from HP and Diageo for many years, and having both country, regional and global positions in those companies. She's a passionate volunteer and is currently chair of Scottish Skills Development Scotland's Digital Technology Skill Group, the Gender Gap Initiative. Evelyn is also part of the First Minister's Advisory Group for Women and Girls, and she was voted Scottish Mentor of the Year in 2018, mentoring undergraduates at Scottish universities, and also mentors extensively with Young Enterprise Scotland. So Evelyn, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gillian, for that lovely welcome. I really do appreciate that. So a bit like Jude, I'm going to maybe start talking about where I started my journey. And at university, I studied business studies with psychology, and I really had leadership roles in the tech sector for over 20 years. And as Gillian said, I did my graduate programme in Diageo, but it was that time where there was two main industries. There was the drinks industry and there was the tech industry, and I felt I really had developed within the drinks industry, and I was really quite inquisitive about what's tech and what's there and what opportunities are there. So I went to work for Hewlett-Packard, and again, due to the different roles which are available in tech, I had the absolute pleasure and amazing opportunities to move from one role to try another role every 2 to 3 years. And this was, as Gillian said, regionally and globally. And this allowed me to gain so much knowledge, not just of the different sectors, but of the different client base as well. And the reason why I did this was a realization that in some instances, I needed to create my own opportunities and really push myself out of my comfort zone and push myself into a different direction in order to see what my true capabilities and strengths were. But I think most importantly, what really interested me and allowed me to continue to grow and learn. And I remember, I think it was around about 2012, there was a discussion around introducing a new graduate programme to HP. So I put myself forward and partnered with our UK director at that time and introduced and developed a new graduate programme in respect of 3 disciplines, which was project management, business analysis and technical delivery. And this was such an enriching experience. And this was really building something from inception, which I hadn't done before. And over the years, we continually built, developed and nurtured our strategic processes and frameworks. And we grew the programme to over 400 graduates in 10 different sites in the UK. And that was all at the same time. And also during that time, I had the opportunity to support my passion, and Gillian absolutely knocked the nail on the head there, which is the education of others. And I believe that anyone from any background should get the opportunity to learn, study and work in roles that they can continually develop and grow. So I became a mentor at 4 different universities, as well as supporting Young Enterprise, as Gillian mentioned, as a business advisor. And it was through that work that I was asked to be the first chair of the Skills Development Scotland Digital Skills Gender Workstream. And this was an amazing opportunity because we carried out bespoke studies with Napier University and how to get more females and males into tech roles. And again, Jude talks about her passion about getting more people into tech. And after our studies, we shared key findings from the research and detailed recommendations ideas for action. So we weren't able to do it on our own, and we realised that we couldn't. So we wanted to work through the skills investment plan with partners including Scottish Government, Scottish Funding Council, Education Scotland, Highlands and Islands, Scottish Enterprise, but most importantly, input from across industry and education. And it was really during my first term as the chair of the gender work stream and guiding through and supporting young enterprise teams to set up their own business that I decided I wanted to set up my own business. And I wanted to concentrate on working with startups and scale-ups with my experience of just growing from Exception and the graduate programme. So it was with a really heavy heart that I decided to leave HP and set up my own consultancy company. So fast forward 4 years, I have been working with so many innovative and creative individuals and companies, and I just adore what I do. I have worked in cybersecurity, health tech, EdTech, data analysis, and I've learned so much about myself and my ability too. But I've also learned that it can be a lonely experience starting out on your own, especially when you're used to being a part of a bigger team, which I was in HP. But it's really important, and a really important lesson that I learned was to surround yourself with like-minded people who you can have an open and honest conversation with, and also be respectful to their open and honest feedback to you. And also learned that you may not get it right the first time, but keep persevering. So as I work closely, as Gillian said, with startup and scale-ups in respect of building HR and strategic frameworks, I also represent these companies as a director at the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. And I think that's really important because the Chamber is there for all of us, from university spin-outs to startups to scale-ups to SMEs to larger organisation. We all have a voice in Glasgow, and very proud to have that voice in Glasgow. And working closely with these startups and scale-ups and looking at the opportunities in tech today, the emerging sectors I'm definitely seeing are in AI, health tech, ed tech, cyber, space tech and FinTech. And it was really encouraging in September last year, the Scottish Government announced 5 technology hubs will be established to support the next generation of Scottish startups. And this was in response to one of Mark Logan's recommendations. And this initial funding will invest in critical infrastructure, enabling the hubs to give entrepreneurs world-class training and mentoring alongside the chance to network and share ideas, which is fundamental when you are the entrepreneur or you are at that first stage of starting out. And these will be known as the tech scalers and will also be tasked with supporting at least 300 startups by 2025. So this is really exciting and encouraging. So just on a final point, while working with so many talented, innovative and creative people and companies, I'm really encouraged to see that they're putting their culture and values at the centre of their companies. And I'm also seeing candidates going for roles in these sectors wanting a more enriching experience. They want to grow and develop in a company that shares their own values and really want to work in a sector where they feel they want to belong. And I'm also seeing that there's a thirst for continuous learning and CPD. It's really important to them. And also this is alongside the need for flexibility in their working day and their working week. Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you, Evelyn. That was great. So you've heard from each of our 3 panellists a bit about their journey and their background. What I'm going to do is come back round the panellists, and I'm hoping that you will also participate, all of you will participate in sharing your choose to challenge and the why you've chosen that. Because when I was thinking about mine, it's tough to just settle on one. I think, you know, I start to make a list and there's so many, so settling on one is pretty difficult. But first of all, I'll come to you, Rabinder, and if you could share your International Women's Day Choose to Challenge theme.
Thanks very much, Gillian. My choose to challenge is just to, number one, is to encourage every woman there is no glass ceiling. It's in our head. There's, you know, no barriers. Just go forward and achieve and be confident. I think confidence is the biggest thing that sometimes missing. You know, people can do a lot more than they think, and just having the confidence to go forward is number one. I also said earlier on about I was one of those people that's not really very much into tech, and I'm now loving my tech, my Apple Watch. But I really think using technology in the future can save lives. So everyone in the household should get more familiar with technology. And there's lots of things we can talk about, really.
Yeah, I think you've brought a really interesting point about the impact on wearable technology and other technology on improving your well-being more broadly than just health. And it was interesting on International Women's Day website today, they had an article about 62% of women don't find the time to actually find out about their health, which is really quite interesting. So I think your advice and recommendation to grab the opportunity to use wearable tech or other technology and apps to support your well-being is really interesting. So Jude, how about you? What's your choose to challenge?
I want to challenge how women are significantly impacted by the pandemic and how we can turn this into something positive, especially for working mothers who already do in a double shift. Full day at work followed by many hours of, you know, helping out with homework and looking after things in the home as well. And then along came COVID and schools were shut, home education added into it. And women felt this probably sometimes self-inflicted, but also was the pressure of being totally on, you know, how can we be prepared for homeschooling, for everything that the pandemic is throwing at us, you know, not seeing parents, not seeing vulnerable people and stuff, and then trying to be teachers as well. And what I found was when it happened was the female guilt as well. When you look at social media and you see all the perfect pictures of the whole family sitting around the dining room table, and other mothers then text me going, I'm just doing my homework schedule, the work schedule for the kids tomorrow. I think my kids were feral for lockdown number one because I never seen what they were doing, and I just hope that they did learn something. But how the turning that into a positive is that it was seen by people, and I think it was appreciated that the double shift was recognized. And you know, that we all seen that video a year and a half ago of the father doing the presentation and the mother and the kids and everything arriving in. Little did we know within a few months that was going to be a norm for all of us, and now none of us bat an eyelid when a kid comes across the screen, or the family or the husband's shouting at the wife or something on screen. So we need to basically capture that and see that work can truly fit around people's lives, and that workplaces will be more supportive for everybody. So basically support that, and the same way as our families supported the workplace, make sure that the workplace supports our families after COVID-19 and we don't slip into any bad habits again.
Yep, I think there was probably lots of us can relate to bad habits around work patterns and commitments, and it's really interesting to see how that's been challenged. Thank you, Jude. And Evelyn, what's your choose to challenge?
Well, as I shared earlier, Gillian, I'm really passionate about anyone from any background getting the opportunity to learn, study and work. So my choose to challenge would be for all of us to work together in order to champion neurodiversity in the workplace. And most people are neurotypical, but around 1 in 10 people in Scotland are neurodivergent, which means their brain functions, they learn and process information differently. And neurodiversity is about recognising and understanding that everyone's brain works differently, but it's also about recognising and respecting that we don't all learn the same way. And due to the brain functioning differently and learning and processing information differently, this leads to cognitive strengths and cognitive abilities. For example, excellent problem solving, creativity, attention to detail, strategic thinking, focused approach, high provision memory and pattern recognition. So if you think about our digital technology environment, these are strong skill sets which are suited to roles, for example, software development, software testing, cybersecurity, where Jude's in just now, ethical hacking, data analytics and quality assurance. So really, with this in mind, with these additional strong skill sets, by championing neurodiversity in the workplace, it actually has proven benefits for business innovation, resilience and profitability. And from an employer perspective, the benefits of having a neurodiverse workforce is actually a bigger access to the support of a much wider talent pool. And this talent pool will be from all levels of the talent pipeline, and that is along with higher productivity and innovation and retention. So that's my choose to challenge for us all to champion neurodiversity in the workplace.
Excellent, thank you very much, Evelyn. And I think we're going to come to our audience now as well in terms of asking you for your choose to challenge. I can see some of the questions coming in as well, so we'll come to them shortly. But I'd maybe like to ask one of our audience, Margaret Totten from McCorry, who's joined us this afternoon, and I think she would like to share her choose to challenge idea. I just see if...
Sorry, I'll just get her.
Hi there. Sorry, I was on mute and it wouldn't let me unmute myself.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi there. So my choose to challenge this year is recruitment, and it's came at my own experience in the last 4 weeks. We're growing at a really large pace, and we've went to the old tried and tested. The minute we're recruiting for tech, we go to some agencies, and what it's meant is over the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've received a pool of candidates who are almost identical in every single way, from age, ethnicity, and they're all male. I've had one female applicant in the last 8 weeks, and I went back to the team and said we have to challenge that, and we have to look at how we can recruit in a more diverse way. How can we encourage more women to apply? How can we also look at people applying a different way? People who might be returning to work after taking a career break, looking at apprenticeships, looking at people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. I was born and raised in the East End of Glasgow, and no one really came and spoke to us about what a career in technology meant. So we are choosing to challenge how we recruit going forward and trying to encourage our partners and the agencies we're working with to do the same, so that we've said that we'll pay an extra percentage if we hire someone who is different from the people they keep hitting us with. So we're choosing to challenge them as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Margaret. If there is anyone else that would like to share your choose to challenge, please either put your hand up and I'll come to you, or to put it into the chat. And our first question is in from Donna. Are you quite happy to ask your question, Donna, if we unmute you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Donna from Aspen. And what a good segue there, Margaret. Great question there on diversity of recruitment. But my point was really to congratulate the ladies today in their presentations, but in particular those who have taken on jobs in lockdown and been bold, I suppose, in the case of Evelyn, to go away from the comfort of a big company background. And what gave you the confidence to be bold and to be brave?
I think from my perspective, Donna, it's believing in yourself and believing that you can accept where you want to be, but you can also push yourself. I think I was sharing, you push yourself out your comfort zone, and until you push yourself out your comfort zone, you really don't know what you're capable of. And I just felt that I had so much more to give. Every day's a learning day for me. Every time I meet someone, I learn from them as well. And that really just gave me the buzz. And I was also working with young students in 6th year as a business advisor, helping them set up their own business. And every year, I did that for 5 years. Every year I used to go back and think, why am I not setting my own business up? So I had that epiphany, I had that moment, and it has been hard. It has been a hard journey, but it's been a journey that I would totally love to relive again and do the same things. But I would also urge other people to think about making that step, just that step out your comfort zone, because there really is something magical on the other side.
And Jude, maybe come to you, as Donna had mentioned, you also taking on that new role at the start of April last year.
Yeah, the start of the role wasn't what I envisaged as a CEO. So as my old boss used to say, I slept like a baby for the first few months, waking up every few minutes, kicking and screaming, because it isn't what I envisaged. And I was like, what if I'm not successful? What if this fails? What if the team, what if I can't motivate them and stuff? But what I inherited was an amazing team who I spoke with very candidly in the beginning, saying, I know you don't know me, I don't know you. Some of you I've never met in person, some of them I haven't met in person yet, and just know them from the head to the shoulders. But what I wanted them to think about, that in years to come, when we look back on COVID, that they didn't feel stressed, that they didn't feel that they had to impress me as a new CEO, that we were all in this together. And we took our time, we got to know each other, we got to spend time with each other, even if it was one-to-one just on Zoom and stuff like that as well, and kept the conversation going. And they're all itching to get back into the office. I think, again, it was telling myself, when I was talking about the homeschooling and stuff like that as well, that I was like, I can't keep everything going. I can't keep all the plates. I can't be a new CEO. I can't keep the staff happy. I can't sit there with my kids doing homeschooling. So something's got to give. And I chose to let the kids do what they wanted. So, and that's been totally honest. But after a few, when you still start looking at things and hearing what other mothers are doing and stuff, and you're going, actually, the questions that I ask myself all the time about my kids are, first of all, are they happy? Yes. Are they healthy? Yes. Are they well looked after? Yes. And the most important for me is, can I hear laughter? And if I can still hear my kids enjoying their days, even online with their kids and stuff like that, well, do you know what? I've got nothing really to worry about. I can not take my foot off something else then to concentrate on them. So don't beat yourselves up, be kind to each other, and be kind to everybody in your family and your staff as well. None of us have ever had to do this before. And also take the help from others as well. I've had very good counsel. I've had very good advice and everything from a lot of senior people that I've known for over the last few years, who have been there for me in the last year as well. So I will never forget that from others as well. So that's how I survived it.
Great, thank you, Jude. So we're going to take one of the questions that's in the chat, and this is back to kind of Glasgow's key strengths as a leading city in technology. So I maybe come to Rabinder first, and then Evelyn and Jude after that, if they've anything to add. But what do you think the city should look to develop to support tech businesses and startups in the next decade?
That's quite an easy one. Number one, it's people, it's graduates. We've got the best universities here, a massive talent pool there coming out of the universities. Mm-hmm. And I think very, very strong close partnerships between industry and academia is absolutely key, so that we can equip even better the graduates coming out of the university to take the technology and other exciting jobs of the future, and to compete from a Glasgow base on a global stage. So I would say educating and partnering the graduates within industry.
Great. And Evelyn, Jude, anything from either of you to add to what Glasgow can do?
I would agree with Rabinder just with regards to supporting supporting all levels of the talent pipeline, but also young graduates who are coming out into their first role. And as mentioned earlier it was really encouraging last year for the Scottish Government to announce the 5 technology hubs, which is going to be established on the back of Mark Logan's recommendations. So that really is talking about entrepreneurs, university spin-outs, startups, scale-ups. There's so much appetite out there, and there's so much creativity and so much innovation, and being involved in that on a day-to-day basis, that really encourages me. And as I mentioned, I work within health tech, EdTech, cyber, FinTech, AI, which is obviously our emerging sectors of the future. So really do more to support and nurture these graduates, as Rabinder said, but also encourage them to start up on their own, be an entrepreneur, or go into that workplace where they feel that they belong. Great.
And Jude, you've been a massive contributor to the talent pipeline, both, the DataLab, but also SBRC with the work you do around ethical hacking. Do you want to share, a little bit about, I think the graduate route is fantastic and absolutely that talent pipeline. But I think one of the other aspects, and I know you and I have spoke about it before, is that breadth of entry points, whether it's apprenticeships, retraining, reskilling later. Do you want to share your perspective on the different routes and channels for our talent pipeline?
Yeah, and the other thing is just to point back, saying about the people side of things, I think the one other advantage to Glasgow is the places. So we're all talking about working from home, we're talking about COVID and stuff like that, but the availability of really nice office and networking spaces in Glasgow compared to Edinburgh is an amazing coup for Glasgow, and it's one thing that we should be shouting from rooftops about. Going back to the people side of things, I was just talking about this earlier on, that we have, so the ethical hackers, most of them are all from Abertay, but some of them are, from school and stuff, and that's their, went on to do their degrees, but there's about 3 or 4 of them that are ex-army, so defence, and they are amazing ethical hackers. And I don't think they're going to stay in Scotland because they have this depth and breadth to them, that it's around the intelligence side of things, and not just around the technology. So they're able to bring all the business of cyber together. And I would really encourage, so especially when they've got the things like in defence forces and stuff, when you can choose to leave after 5 or 10 years, you've got the rest of your life ahead of you, and you've gained amazing skills that instead of saying I want to be a security guard, why not look at things around tech and IT and cyber as well. Also, why do we need to do 5 years if in university for a degree, if there's things that we can do around things like data science and cyber as well? We should be looking at 3rd level college education, we should be looking at day release, and also cross training as well in organizations. So when we're in the DataLab, we worked with people in Scottish government as well who had very good stats and maths backgrounds, but may not have been necessarily data scientists, but they could still reskill in their careers whilst working to become data scientists and very data literate. So I don't think we should just keep thinking about university. And I found that very difficult when I moved over here to Scotland, that everything is very, your parents are very proud if you go through to university, and that seems to be the only way of getting a career over here. But I think it's changing. Whereas in Ireland, we didn't call it university, we called it college. And when I used to say college over here, I was looked down on. It was like, oh no, I went to university. So there is this kind of ivory tower kind of thing about universities, and it's not always the right option for people, and not the option that some people may not have to take. They may not have to need to spend 4 or 5 years in university.
Yeah, in fact, just as I was asking that question, I think Billy came in the chat and talked about apprenticeships, and it's the amount of work that Skills Development Scotland has done, and I know Evelyn and I think Claire's on the call as well have done, certainly in digital apprenticeships through to specialist apprenticeships as well, all the way through from foundation, which you can start while you're still at school. But one of the other discussions in the chat is around male candidates and the gender gap at earlier stage in the pipeline in schools. And one of the things Mark also covered in his Scottish Tech Ecosystem review was that foundational talent pipeline, and treating computing science, for example, as a subject to the same importance as English and maths. Do any of you wish to come in? And I'm happy to open this up to anyone else if you want to stick your hand up. I know I can see a number of names that work in the technology sector that maybe want to come in and share your thoughts on that gender gap at an earlier stage in schools. Evelyn, you work with mentoring and with Skills Development Scotland. Do you think there's things that we can do, or what should we do to narrow that gap at school level?
I think absolutely. I think it starts actually preschool. I think it starts as young as 3-4 years of age, where just to nurture and support if, for example, young girls want to I've got an interest in anything sort of technical or anything mechanical, and also just be supportive and believe that, or believe in them as well. Because when I was mentoring the university students, they were first in their family to go to university, or they were over 25, so they were college beforehand or a job beforehand. So that's why when I'm talking about the different levels of the talent pipeline, there is different entry points you can. And also Equate Scotland, they support women returners and carer returners and men returners as well. So there is lots of opportunities out there, but it's just been able to just allow people to know that there is different entry points into the tech sector, because as you mentioned earlier, Gillian, tech sector underpins all sectors in all aspects of our economy.
Great. Do anyone in the audience like to contribute to the discussion? If you want to just stick your hand up, I can see a couple. So first one I saw there was Leslie. I'll come to you after, Angela. But Leslie, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, just to say how much I'm enjoying the event, and I'm really listening to, I think, the experiences and the debate that we're hearing today. But we've definitely touched on, I think, a few of the issues in terms of that talent pipeline and ensuring that broader diversity of the pipeline. And that's an area where, for some of you, you will be familiar with the work of Equate Scotland, who I represent here today. But part of the pipeline does really start with that more cultural and diversity change at the very early stages. So as Evelyn touched on, it's very much about recognising where we need to spend our time and where we need to spend our investment. And to use a STEM analogy, where is the root cause of the problem? And the root cause really is much earlier in that pipeline. Just on talking about computer science, and even in manufacturing and engineering, the latest UCAS data shows that it's pretty well stuck for UCAS information around 16% in those subjects. So if we think about our talent pipeline, and if we think about the skills that we feel we want to excel at in Scotland, and that we want to ensure we're part of that vital economy going forward, then we need to really address, I think, a little bit more systematically where that leaky pipeline is causing concern. If you also, I'd put out just a choose to challenge in the chat, which was really just about, and links perhaps to the discussion about recruitment. If we get, if we only ever go to the same pond, we only ever get the same fish. So I think it's been great to hear that there's a challenge from recruitment organisations to broaden that net, that pool of people that that is going to be looked at as part of the process. And we've been doing work recently. I've spoken with Evelyn before on neurodiverse events, and we're currently doing a partnership which is with Code Clan and DataLab this week, which is a data science introductory course for neurodiverse women. So I think lots of these types of efforts need to be looked at in the round. But I think we also need to look at where we currently are in terms of our economic strategies that we're currently pursuing, and actually challenge ourselves whether they are inclusive in that widest sense. In gender and Close the Gap, we've already highlighted the economy strategy, for example, is not very gender focused. And I think if you look beyond that and look at some of the wider strategies, I think we do need to challenge ourselves about how inclusive we are in terms of that intersectionality of our data, and not just focusing on gender, because even within gender, there are different requirements beyond that that we need to consider. So I think now is the time to choose to challenge. We're going to be investing lots of public money in the way we do things out of COVID recovery, and it would be great that if we have that raise that level of debate to include some of these wider issues, I think we will all not just build back better, but I think we would build back fairer in the long term.
That's great. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you for sharing your Choose to Challenge as well. So, Angela, I'm going to come to you. I'll just...
Hi, hello all. So I'm Angela Matisse. I have a company called Think Tank Maths. It's 14 years old. You heard me right, Think Tank Maths. I try not to over intellectualize stuff too much, but it becomes quite a challenge for me actually, that. Simply because that's where we're from. But look, I think there's a couple of conversations. It's a fascinating conversation all around. And if we're looking for people, I like the idea of the diversity of thinking, not just male, female. It's about skills, and that's a really smart way of looking at it, because even if we're as a company looking at a major problem we're trying to solve, and we've got a team of mathematicians, within that team of mathematicians, there's people with very, very different skills. We often know, and then there's also people on a sort of spectrum of how abstract they like to live and work, if I could put it that way politely. So I think embracing all of that inside a team, but I think going back to the sort of, I put into the chat, it's about primary school teachers, subject bias and qualifications. And I was a number of years ago on the Scottish Science Advisory Council, and one of the things when we brought in the Curriculum for Excellence, I was very split in that, because in one sense, not pigeonholing, maths, physics, chemistry, and doing this morphed approach to a problem, the real life. We don't come at it and go, this is a maths problem, this is a whatever. It's a problem where you need all of the thinking skills of a human being to tackle. And at the same time, one of the choices we had to make, which was a pity, it seemed to be, was cutting down, because I think that was one of our advantages in our education system in Scotland, was if you look at our primary school teachers, for example, how many of them do you really need, must you have a higher maths to become a primary school teacher? And if you don't, will a primary school teacher who's kind of got a phobia of maths and tech, will they pass that on to the children in the class? And I think we're talking here about the pipeline as well. So if you've got teachers that have come into the system, but they really are not very comfortable talking about science subjects, tech subjects, we could be biasing the children in the room to shy away from those. And we all, confidence in subjects or liking them and having fun with them is going to be missing. So that's that's a really, really important piece, I think. And so I think instead of STEM, I'm a great believer also in STEAM. So these are all linked, where you've actually got the arts are brought in, because we shouldn't be, and I think, I think making sure, that an education, because even a scientist, if they just are real geeks, if they really become geeks, they won't be apt at tackling human type problems, and that's the majority of what people have got. So I really think even the terminology of STEAM is more important. I'll stop. That's a bit of a ramble, but it's a lot of the points that we were hitting off here, and maybe open to others for conversation. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so anyone else, you can either raise a virtual hand, or I'll try and keep my eyes open for a physical hand. But coming to the chat, SMEs and other sectors like the care industry to develop tech capability and digitisation. I think that's a fantastic question. And there's a number of initiatives that I'm aware of that I'm happy to share, and then open it up to the other panelists. So just even in the data side, we've been working with SQA on the new National Performance Award for Data Science. It was the first in the UK for an award for school level and colleges. And alongside College Development Network, we built training for college lecturers in data that is now supporting the rollout of data content in other courses. So Borders College, for example, have embedded that in 11 different courses, from mechanics to beauty therapy to hairdressing to social care and other care qualifications. And I think that's one way to try and embed that in the education system. So actually embedding digital data and other technology inside those courses because of the relevance and importance going forward to be successful in those roles. But the other key thing is to offer a reskilling and upskilling capability, and a number of our both training providers, colleges and our universities indeed are providing short courses that can be done part-time and sometimes offline as well. So you do at your own pace in different types of technology or digital or data or cyber. So I don't know if any of the panel, Jude, if you can share anything that's going on in the cyber space for upskilling or more broad embedding in other courses.
Yeah, and I think also for cyber, it has to be not just around university or embedding it into courses and stuff as well. It has to be around all different organizations as well. We wanted, this morning we had one on introducing cyber into the boardroom, because it hasn't been on the agenda, and it's not just around the skills for younger people. It has to be, you know, to protect Scotland. It is very serious at the moment around the amount of ransomware attacks that are happening. Some of them are being discussed and some of them are not. And we had SEPA at Christmas time, which we need to look at the depth and breadth of the skills that we have in Scotland that can help with attacks like that, but also look at, you know, how we're talking about it in organizations and how we're protecting against it. So yeah, it's a huge conversation that is way behind most of the technical conversations like data science and general tech. And we're probably just starting on that journey really in Scotland. The one thing that scares me is we had SEPA at 1 minute past Christmas Eve, you know, 1 minute past midnight on Christmas Eve. What if there had been 5 or 6 separate attacks on different organizations in Scotland, particularly around healthcare and stuff? We don't have the skills, the expertise or the experience to deal with attacks like that in Scotland, which leave us very, very vulnerable.
And Evelyn, anything experience you've got in terms of how do we make sure other sectors that may not think of themselves as being part of the tech sector, but technology and underpins a lot of how they deliver in that particular sector, whether it's care or otherwise?
And I think you sort of hit the nail on the head, Gillian, when you talked about skilling and reskilling and upskilling, and also Leslie talked about funding that's coming through for reskilling as we come post-COVID. So really is to look out for the different organisations that can help work with the care sector or other sectors which don't feel that they are tech for that tech support. And there's also the Open University are also giving funding for SMEs up to £5,000 to reskill and do training courses as well. So that is really been very popular, or a very popular option. So I would definitely recommend just to have a look about to see what is there, but definitely upskilling and reskilling is the way forward.
Craig, I've just seen a note that you've put in around the Digital Extra Fund. If I can find you on my screen, it'd be great. Maybe if you could come off and share that with the rest of the audience. There we go. Hi, Craig. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but I thought it was important to highlight the opportunity with the Digital Extra Fund.
No, thank you. Yes, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just saw someone ask a question about after school clubs and how do we use them to encourage more young people, especially girls and young women, to get into tech. And coincidentally, applications are now open for Digital Extra Fund, which support this exact type of approach. It was highlighted in the Logan report as well as an excellent way to engage young people. So yeah, I didn't mean to take over or put a plug in, but you've obviously asked me to, so thank you. Yeah, if you're a company, school, college, university, basically anyone that's engaging young people in tech, you can apply for up to £5,000. Part of the application as well does ask if your extracurricular activity is targeting girls and young women. And if you are, and you can sort of explain how that is, then basically that can give you some bonus points almost on your application. So we can skew the results a little bit to target those as well as groups from rural, isolated areas and deprived areas. So those are sort of the three groups that we try and focus on a little bit more.
Great, thank you, Craig. And are you okay just to put a link into the chat if there's anyone on the call that wants to apply? You can make it easy for them.
Yeah, I thought about that. I just didn't want to be too presumptive.
Oh,
earlier,
no.
but I will do that.
The offer of cash, I would say get in there, put the link up.
True. That's true. That's true. All right, thanks, Gillian.
Great, and I can see, apologies if I mispronounce your name, Sahine's shared the choose to challenge and choosing to challenge gender stereotypes as a parent and gap start at home. If anyone saw the BBC documentary a few years ago around you giving, they changed the sex of young babies and toddlers in terms of the clothes they were wearing, and then invited adults in to play and look at what toys they chose, and it was a stark reminder of the absolute unconscious bias, unfortunately, that's in all of us, that for the babies dressed up in blue, they went for the trucks and the cars and the mechanical things, and if the baby was dressed up in pink, they went for the dolls and the pink prams and things. And it was a stark reminder to us all. So thank you for sharing your choose to challenge.
Gillian, can I maybe ask, sorry to interrupt, can I ask what your choose to challenge is? We've not asked you.
My choose to challenge. I think it's more about the broad diversity in all its guises, and it's one that's very relevant for the field we're working in terms of AI, because AI is here. We are probably interacting with it unconsciously often in some of the applications we use and technology we use. And the teams behind some of these algorithms and the creations are not always diverse in its broadest sense. And I think we need to continually challenge. And there's a school of thought that says if your team is not diverse, then by default your algorithm is biased. And I think that's a really interesting one. So kind of my choose to challenge is on that, is asking, is your team diverse that is going to work on this problem? And how do you foresee or do your best to try and foresee unintended consequences of biased algorithms? So really interesting topic, but that would be a whole other afternoon of chat. But that is my choose to challenge, because our world is going to be more influenced by AI in the future. And if we get it wrong, unfortunately, it's going to be a real problem for all of us. So I'm going to just check. I know we're just beyond the hour. We do have a little bit more time, but I'm very conscious that if there's any more questions, we'll take them from the audience. I'm not seeing anything, but so listen, a huge thank you to everyone actually for joining this afternoon, and a massive thank you to Rabinder, Evelyn and Jude. It was great to hear your stories and for you to share your choose to challenge with us. There's a few more links being put up in the chat for ada.scot, the Digital Extra Fund, and some information from Alan on SDS call to action on neurodiversity. It's been a real pleasure to welcome you to Glasgow Talks. Thank you to our sponsors, Adam Smith Business School at the University of Glasgow and Clydesdale Bank. And in April, for Glasgow Talks, we will be joined by Duncan Booker and Michelle McGinty from the Glasgow City Council team, who are leading the city plans for COP26. So a really hot topic, not just for Glasgow, not just for Scotland, but actually for the world. Alan will be in touch with you all shortly, and the Broad Chamber membership with information on how to sign up for that Glasgow Talks session. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure to explore. And if you didn't manage to share your choose to challenge with us, have a think and put it on a social media or commit, because certainly when you write it down and you tell other people, we're more likely to follow it through. So thank you very much. Have a great afternoon and a really good week, and stay safe. Thank you.